Joining me in the neighbourhood and certainly in the studio this morning for the first time in 2020, and my goodness, we're into February already, pretty scary, but I say a very good morning and welcome to the President of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. Very good morning to their Shire President, Councillor Michelle Rich. Good morning, Madam President.
Good morning, James. I am so excited to be back, and I cannot believe we are already a month down.
Well, you've been a month into it.
It is.
Isn't it?
It's just flying by.
It's a fact of life that with so much, I suppose, that has taken and continues to take our attention as far as the obvious national disaster on the East Coast. Scary to think that started back in November, and there's still
it was before November. They had fires start in the eastern states, probably going back as early as September last year, which is realistically unprecedented for bushfires to start so early. But we are seeing that our bushfire period is beginning to lengthen, and because that is lengthening, the time frame that our various government departments and volunteer bushfire brigades and that have to do mitigation burning is shortening.
Yeah.
So we are seeing changes in that space.
And we won't go down that track because it's bigger than Ben-Hur in terms of, but in its own way, it is something that does eventually come back to all of us as to what we are doing about Mother Nature, the environment, and our bit to try and reduce an impact on the big picture there. By way of subjects, obviously that links in to the chat I was just having with my previous guest, the president from the Whitby Estate Residents Association. As you would well know yourself, there was a fire within. There's been a couple within the Shire this bushfire season already. Fabulous, as you say, the work of the volunteers and their fire brigades in getting on top of them, but then without them having anywhere near the impact that they have done.
Look, obviously we've had numerous little fires all across the Shire for months.
Yep.
We've had two, I suppose, significant events in recent weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Baldivis Mardella fire a couple of weeks ago, which started in the city of Rockingham and spread quite quickly because of the wind conditions that were behind it into the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. Our local volunteer fire brigades, along with DFIS and Department of Parks, Department of Biodiversity, whatever it is, DBCA, and numerous other different groups, the SES, and that all work together. And the job they did in the conditions they were fighting that particular fire to stop it where they did, and to only have a shed and rural fencing lost, was unbelievable. The job they did was absolutely enormous. Then earlier this week that just gone, we've had another significant event. We had another fire that started out in Hopeland. Again, extremely grateful to our local fire brigades, DFIS, and all the other organisations that come in, like the Salvos come in as well to feed and water and all the people that are out there fighting the fire. So it's not just a couple of people here and there. This is a huge joint effort between a number of different large and small organisations that go into protection of our community, as in our people, and asset protection. The Hopeland fire, again, no major assets lost. It was contained to a bushland reserve. So it was an extremely difficult fire to fight given the nature of where it was. But again, they managed to jump on top of that fire extremely quickly and contain it so that they could then control it and eventually put it out.
And it's, again, a clear debt of gratitude we acknowledge to all of the volunteers, but as you say, from an operational perspective, it's not just those that are literally at the fire front, it's all those in that back office scenario, all of the groups, as you say, they've got to keep them fed and watered and enthusiastic.
Yeah, and look, the planning that goes on into those events to make sure that the people out there on the fire ground are safe. And the back work, we have a number of Shire officers as well that are continuously just working in the background And I don't think people have a full understanding of the cooperation that goes on between various groups and departments to actually keep people and areas safe when these events arise.
Yes, and to that extent, as you would be aware, having participated and attended the Whitby Estate Residents meeting, that estate in itself is within the Shire. One of its attractions is the beautiful rural setting that they find themselves in. But with that, of course, we're in the land of Oz. At summertime, bushfires are a potential reality at any time.
Look, they are. In our Shire alone, we are 97% bushfire prone.
Mm-hmm.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
I myself live on a no-through road, completely surrounded by bush.
Mm-hmm.
I know the risks, I choose to live there. In knowing those risks and choosing to live there, I must have a bushfire plan. And if that is, as soon as you see smoke or you hear something, you get out, that's what you do. You have to plan for what is there at any given point in time. You can't plan for what should be, because that's not where you're living. You're living in the here and now. So you must plan for that. And as things change, your bushfire plan will also change. But I think there is a lack of understanding, and this is probably one of the spaces that the Shire, well, it's not that the Shire will be working in this space, because I've already had discussions with our CEO, and in the breakdown of the Hopeland fire, the last one we had this week, we've also had the discussion with DFIS that there's a lack of understanding on what people need to do, what they should have planned, and how they actually read and take in the information that is presented when there is a significant event. And so as a Shire, we are in the early stages now, but we are planning to have a bushfire forum type thing where people can come in and actually learn more information concerning those type of events and what they can do, what they shouldn't do, because the key is to actually be able to educate our people so that they are confident. The worst thing you can do in, I suppose, these situations is panic, and we don't want people panicking and then making poor or bad decisions which eventuate in someone getting hurt. We want them to actually be able to make a clear, educated decision on what they will do for their own personal safety, and if that is that they get out really, really quickly, that's fine. That's what they do.
Coming back to the specific issue though with the Whitby estate, I didn't attend the meeting. I have no idea what the issues raised and comments made by residents there were. But as someone who perhaps has purchased a house in an environment like that, I take the comment you made, living on a no-through road. You bought that and have decided to live there on that basis and that clear understanding. Someone who's perhaps purchased a house in a nice new estate would expect there's more than just one road in or out. I don't know if it's a question that you'll ask a developer or the salesman or the builder when you actually build the house, but I'm interested in the reality of having purchased a house in an estate like that. Everybody's got a bush plan, and the first thing they want to do is evacuate the area. The volume of traffic, all those sorts of things.
I think we probably need to understand the Whitby area.
Yes.
The Whitby estate has a great big beautiful sign up that shows a finished development of what it will look like overall once everything is developed, which could take many, many years, given market values and all that kind of thing, to how fast or slow the developer builds. So when people, I suppose, walk into an estate like that and look at purchasing a home and land package and that, they probably look at the big picture, which shows, you know, a high school here, a primary school there, a set of shops here, exit and entry roads and streets here and here and here, without an understanding that these estates are built in stages. But within saying that, there is a lot of documentation and conditions put on the developers when these are approved. Now, when we look at exactly what has come about with Whitby and the meeting that was called, Whitby has one access road in and out at this point in time. You can't see Whitby Estate from the highway. You can't see it from Soldiers Road. You really can't see it from Keenan Street until you get to where that entry is, because it is completely surrounded by bushland and farmland.
Which, as I said, is a major attraction for, I'm sure.
It is a major attraction for people to actually go and buy and establish their homes in these areas. And I think when you look at what was discussed and stated at the community meeting that was held last week, this is not just one issue. There is actually a number of issues that come together as a complex issue. Now, the way to actually, I suppose, work through this is to actually break those issues down, because those issues are not all the responsibility of the one person. They have numerous different people that are responsible for the smaller issues. When it comes to telecommunications are a federal issue. So we need to move into that federal space and start and get the discussions happening in that space. Now, Whitby is not the only area in the Shire of Serpentine, Jarrahdale, that has issues with telecommunications. We have issues through Whitby, Mundijong, Jarrahdale, Serpentine, even Byford. I've got friends that I cannot sit in their house in Byford and make a phone call or receive a phone call on my mobile phone. I actually have to walk outside their house. That is in Byford. So obviously telecommunications are an issue. They are one part of the complex issue with Whitby. When we look at the access in and out, this is a discussion that needs to happen between the Shire and the developer. Now, I know that the developers were invited to the Whitby meeting because they had correspondence between our Director of Development Services, Andrew Trussick, and the developer. So there was communication there, and the developers didn't attend.
Despite being aware of it.
They were aware of it. I am understanding of the issues raised by the community, because when you watch what's happening on the East Coast, there is a certain amount of fear that comes with this. And I think with the issues that we've seen happen through the eastern states, it makes people more aware of their own surrounding, and they start looking at it, and that so they go, oh, hang on, we've got an issue. Which is good that it's been raised, because it needs to be sorted out. My belief is, and I will stand by this 100%, that Andrew Trussick, with the information he provided to the community on that night, did a fantastic job. I have gone back in the week since and asked a lot of questions and received a lot of documentation that I myself have actually read through. Now, I know that it took the Shire a while to get a response from the developer. That has now happened, and there is a meeting scheduled for next week between the Shire and the developer. There is actually 2 meetings scheduled. There's one at a lower officer level just to sort out a few little bits and pieces, but then there is a meeting between our CEO, Director of Development Services, and the developer to specifically work on this access and entry issue. I would prefer not to say much more in that space. I would need to let those people work through that. I have seen the documentation. I know where the Shire sits, and I do know that Andrew, with the information he presented to the community, did a fantastic job.
I'm sure it was an emotional, or potentially emotive topic to be able to, as you say, what we see and the reality of suddenly, being aware of the fact.
Yeah, and this is it. And I'm probably disappointed in the front page of the Examiner this week. One, because they didn't have a reporter there, so everything that's been reported is second and third hand that they've reported in the paper. I am disappointed in the attack on Andrew Trussick as a professional that is employed by a Shire. He is an extremely intelligent and knowledgeable director. And moving, I suppose, backwards from that, our local MLA has not had a meeting with the Shire and actually sat down and has an understanding of the information that the Shire holds on this subject matter. That meeting is yet to come. And I suppose the other thing that I am extremely disappointed in, and I will say a little bit angry, is the attack on our captain of the Mundijong Fire Brigade. He is an exceptional firefighter. He is actually a resident of the Whitby estate, so he was there in his capacity.
He's got a vested interest in.
He does. He was there as a resident, and when things got a bit heated and people started saying a few bits and pieces which he knew to be incorrect, he actually tried to explain from a firefighter's point of view and the fact that they need to have plans in place and what they should do. And what was reported in the paper has been taken out of context massively, and they only reported tiny grabs of pieces that they were given second and third hand. Now,
It's hearsay.
it is hearsay, and I find that disgraceful, given the fact that our two major events, because Jason White is also one of our Deputy Chief Bushfire Control Officers through the Shire, he has an extensive knowledge of firefighting, especially in our local area, and for the way that he was portrayed on the front page of the paper is disgraceful.
Well, I can tell you I have no idea what you're talking about in terms of the content of what's being published. We have the courtesy of your time, and we value the fact that you come down and actually speak to us. People can hear what you say, not what someone thinks they heard you say, and repeat that down the corridor. The reality is that from a community perspective, the issue apparently is the fact that there's only one way in, one way out. If there is a bushfire there this afternoon, residents potentially are trapped in that area because they've only got one way to go. The president of the Residents Association tells me this morning there is in fact a gravel track that can be used or could be utilised.
There is a road that comes off the Southwest Highway called Riley Road.
Yes.
It is a gazetted road. It does not go all the way through to the stages of development that have happened thus far in the Whitby estate. The section of Riley Road that is made, the Shire maintains, because obviously on our maintenance register as a made road. Now, and this is where the discussions and meetings between the Shire and the developer need to happen and need to be allowed to roll out with what comes out of those, because there is information or there is stuff that is printed in the conditions of the development of the estates that should have been done that hasn't been done.
Issues, one can respect that things need to be addressed and discussions had with those parties. My question would be, I suppose, simply that if there is a gazetted road that traffic is impeded on or they're not able to traverse, can that be addressed in an immediate context? If graders need to go down there and make that accessible.
The part of the road that the Shire is responsible for is accessible by all vehicles. So a two-wheel drive vehicle can use that part of the road. The issue is from where that road finishes in the development to where the developer has built the roads where the houses have been developed.
Is that a priority in the Shire's moving forward to solving this problem? Perhaps connecting that up so that that road does flow through, that traffic can use it?
It is a priority of the Shire to make sure that the developer completes the work that they need to complete for their development.
That would appear to be a very easy solution in terms of putting at ease people's immediate concern, which I understand to be the access in and out. One does take the example that it doesn't necessarily have to be a bushfire. If there was some sort of an incident on that main sort of thoroughfare out and in and out that blocked traffic, well again...
At the end of the day, everybody will say very emotionally that the Shire should be doing this, the Shire should be doing that. The Shire has limited funds, and when it is not the responsibility of the Shire should not be spending ratepayers' money doing things that are not our responsibility.
Absolutely.
So in that context, we need to let the Shire and the developer actually sit down and work through this process. And I'm hoping that this process is not going to be a long one, that it will be dealt with extremely quickly.
Well, again, and that's the reality. I'm not going to labour the point. I'm not going to do anything sensational. I'm not going to start engaging you or challenging you on issues that common sense prevails. The Shire has got its obligations. It is meeting those obligations, and it is calling to account those who have other responsibilities that perhaps they've fallen short on.
That's exactly right.
So to that extent, extent, watch this space. We're not printing and saying anything that isn't factual.
At the end of the day, where the Shire sits is our community's safety and amenity is a priority. The Shire doesn't stand to make huge amounts of money out of these developments. What we get at the end of the day is that the developments are handed back to us. We maintain them over a period of time for the benefit of the community, and that's why people pay rates.
Exactly right.
So, that is where the Shire sits. Subdivisions like this, at subdivision stage, it's a state government responsibility. The Shire doesn't have the ability to approve subdivisions. That's a state government deal. That they deal with that side of it.
That's where the state planning comes into it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When it gets down into your local planning, like your local structure planning, the Shire has a lot more input at that stage. We have input at the subdivision stage. We can make recommendations. Whether they are all picked up by the state government or not is up to state government. Mostly, I would say they probably do take into consideration the recommendations that local governments make, but not always. So there is varying levels of what is our responsibility and what is not, what we can input into, what we can influence. But the one thing when we come to things like this that we will fight extremely hard for is our community. Up until, I think, 2015-16, there was no requirement for developments to have more than one access. The requirement to have at least two at a minimum came through various reports from various large fire events that happened, like the Kelmscott fires, the Parkerville fires, the Margaret River fires. The information and the reports that came back out of those incidents actually informed the planning at state level, who then said, right, we need to have more than one exit entry into estates and these areas when they're planned. So this one falls slightly just in that mix. I have read a number of the reports, and we need to let the Shire officers who know their job, they know exactly what's in those reports, deal with the developer to get this fixed for the Shire and for the community.
I'll leave with that, because there are clearly a number of issues that come from that you're not in a position or wouldn't know the answers to. But clearly, it should be a second access point to residents, and it isn't there, then whose problem is it? Why isn't it there? If there was a fire there this afternoon and residents had difficulties in getting out of the estate, all of those things have flow-on effect and impact.
And
whether decisions have or haven't been made that should have been policed, and other things called to account, but clearly the developments play a major role in resolving this issue.
And look, if there was a fire event there this afternoon, we have fire brigades that are extremely close. They get called out immediately as soon as somebody smells or sees smoke. If you are in that situation, the best thing you can do is stay at home and wait. Follow all the information that comes through on the DFIS website, the emergency website, and you'll be able to follow the information. The fire brigades are extremely good at what they do, and given that area, they would be there within a matter of minutes.
Absolutely, and I thank you for raising that point, because it's clearly relevant to this. Comments made earlier that on the day, I think back on January 9, in that area where there was a fire, people look out and, as you say, they expect it to be perhaps, they anticipate it's closer than where it is. But the reality is that not to know where to get information from is a bit scary, that people rely on a social platform rather than the emergency website, which is the place to go to. People should know that.
DFIS have a Facebook page, and they have the links from their Facebook page to the emergency website.
Yes.
So people can follow those. Follow the DFIS website, because DFIS in most of these incidents are the lead department.
That's right.
Both of the significant events we've had have been DFIS fires, because they have been handed to DFIS very quickly because of the scale they have escalated to. And DFIS are very good. They have a full media team to get information out into the public to keep the public informed of what they should be doing. That is the only information you should be following in the event of an emergency.
Certainly the only reliable one. And it does come back to the common sense approach. You need to know your risk and you need to have a bushfire plan ready. If you haven't, my goodness, it doesn't matter where you live. We've discussed this point.
And look, through our local fire brigades, we have a bushfire ready group that are constantly out within the community at various events. They will come in if requested by a community to come in and have a day or an afternoon with them. They provide a lot of information on how to be bushfire ready, how to build a fire plan, all of that information, and they are more than willing to be out in our community, educating our community to help.
As we both know, though, this is something that comes up every summer. The plea for people to have bushfire plans, and it's like so many other subjects. It's the complacency, and if something goes wrong, the finger comes out, and it's never my problem because I didn't use common sense or I didn't take any initiation to look after myself. It's always someone else's fault because of a human failing, unfortunately. And one of the frustrations I'm sure you deal with on a very regular basis in a broad number of areas, because you're the Shire president, and the buck stops here in communication. So I'll leave that. Thank you for the extensive chat on that one, but watch this space if you are specifically interested in the Whitby estate and how it unravels, and we'll keep you abreast of that. As well, because Michelle, it's clearly the impact, and this is not the first occasion that an estate of that kind has had an issue of this sort, because it has clearly happened in the northern suburbs in years gone by as well. 29 minutes past 10 here on 107.3. I'm going to say thank you to some of our sponsors. 27 minutes to the hour. 27 to 11 here on 107.3. Power to the people. John Lennon, one of the universally acclaimed entertainers that still leaves a mark with us. And power to the people. We've got the president of the Shire at Serpentine, Jarrahdale, with us this morning, Councillor Michelle Rich, and just chatting as we were about specifically Whitby, but in broad principles, as is the case, and it's great to see because the growth that's within the southeast corridor here, and specifically within the Shire, continues. Issues of this growth thing and the impact of it, access and whatever else. Whitby's not the only estate within the Shire that perhaps has got that issue.
No, it's not. We have a few. Millbrook Estate, partway up the Jarrahdale Hill, is another area that we have had community members voice concern. Mm-hmm. Now that estate is predominantly, I think, 5 acres and larger blocks. Yep. It has a bush reserve as part of it, and it again has one exit, one entry. Given the nature of where that estate, I suppose, is situated, it is a bit more difficult to deal with because it's not a residential estate, and it is a well-established old estate that has been there for a very long time in the concept that it is today. It does have a number of static water supplies that have been installed over the years for firefighting. Now, my understanding is that it used to have access through bush tracks through state forest, which are no longer available. And I'm not sure of the context of what they were originally available for either. So I don't know if they were actually available specifically for bushfire exiting or not. Mm-hmm. But given the fact that they go through state forest, and if you've got a fire up there, I personally wouldn't be leaving cleared land to go into a forest to get away from a bushfire. But the Shire officers have been spending an awful lot of time working with community members to find a way through this, to make the area a little bit more, I'm not going to say safe, because you're not going to make these areas safe in that kind of...
it's a lifestyle choice to live where people live.
It is, and I think it comes back to people needing to have their bushfire plans for themselves in place, and especially your larger property owners, when you've got people that have 5 to 10 acres of that, they need to make sure that their properties are bushfire prepared. Absolutely. As much as they possibly can. Absolutely. Now, there is a certain amount of responsibility from the Shire's perspective, but the people that live there also have to take on a certain amount of responsibility for themselves.
I think the expectations of someone who buys a 5 or 10 acre block up the hill in that strong rural location is very different to someone who buys a little house on a little block in a clear subdivision where expectations and I think requirements should be very, very different. We can't have 2 access points in and out of everybody's home. That's an impossible dream. This is the land of Oz. I mean, summer fires are what they are, but if you don't have a bushfire plan, don't come whinging and blame other people for it.
People need to have a bushfire plan. It's paramount when you choose to live in some of these areas. People love the bush. There's a beautiful side to the bush. There's also a very dangerous side to the bush, and you need to be aware of all of that.
Dorothy McCullough summarised it so beautifully all those years ago in terms of our droughts and flooding rains and sweeping plains and everything else that goes with it.
Yes.
But there are challenges. These won't go away. But it all comes back to what would a reasonable person do. If you choose to live in the bush, guess what? You take on all the challenges that come with it, so certainly.
And part of your bushfire plan too is not just protecting yourself. It's actually helping if there is an event that the fireys to be able to come in and have defendable areas where they can actually help defend your assets and or your life.
I think an extension of that to try and illustrate for the listener is fire breaks around properties. There's the requirement for them to be, I think, 3 metres. I'm going to generalise here because I'm not in that position anymore to have to worry about a fire break. But I think there's about a 3 metre requirement around the boundaries of your property so that you meet local bylaws with a fire break. But there is also a 4 metre vertical requirement.
Yes.
And this in the past has perhaps been not as heavily, not so much policed, but hasn't been the concern because the bushfires have been what they have been, very hit and miss, and not quite recognised that, hey, you don't want overhanging bushes over over an area.
And your fire break, people say, oh, I shouldn't have to have a fire break because a 3 metre wide strip's not going to stop the fire. It might not stop the fire. What it will do is, depending on what the fire is like, slow it down. But the main thing that it will do, it will give the fire brigade members and the fire trucks a safe, clear area where they can actually have the vehicle, their fire truck and themselves, where they know they are sitting on ground that is not going to burn. Now, if they get caught in areas, they need those areas like that where they can park and drive their trucks and have themselves as safe as possible doing what they do for our communities. So in that context, fire breaks are extremely important.
Absolutely, and all property owners are aware of their obligations, and at this time of the year, I'm sure they have them all well in hand. We have the pleasure, you certainly did in your role as President of the Shire, of celebrating loud and long our National Day. Australia Day was a beautiful day of celebration.
It was. We had 110 new Australian citizens join us on Australia Day. That is a record for us.
Yes.
It is double or over double what we had last year for Australia Day.
Fantastic.
It was more than Mandurah. We had a fantastic day. We started off with the Australia Day breakfast, which was supported, and we had help Shire-wise from our local community groups, the local Lions Club, Rotary, our Baptist Church from Byford, our local fire brigades helping those areas as well. We had our citizen Australia Day awards for our citizens that contribute greatly towards our community in various different areas. And, we had some good nominations for those awards this year, which was great. And then we moved on, and because of the numbers of citizens, new citizens we had doing their commitment to Australia this year, we ran that in 2 different time slots. And, we just had a fantastic day.
And may I put you on the spot in terms of the citizenship awards within the Shire, the recognition that, and it's most appropriate. And
Yes,
remind us.
we had Mr. Tom Hoyer was awarded the Kem Clentish Community Service Award
That's right.
for more than 20 years service over various different community groups to our Shire. So a very, very worthy award winner in Tom for that.
Yeah.
Marilyn, I can't remember her surname, I'm sorry.
Okay,
She was awarded our Australian Day Citizen Award
yes.
for the work she does through the Mundijong United Church group in around organising and holding space meetings and that for Alcoholics Anonymous. Mrs. Colleen Rankin received our Senior Citizen Award. Obviously, I think Colleen's just known by about everybody for the work she's done over numerous years in numerous areas.
There are two individuals that you mentioned in those awards, but it's important because those years come and go, but the dedication and the giving of time by people has such impact over it, such an experience.
Then, do you know what? I actually think we're running out of awards to present Colleen. I think she's won just about everything so far.
The mantelpiece is well and truly chocolates.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's it.
So, but again, great to see that those that had the opportunity were able to nominate, because as we know, citizenship awards happen throughout the year, but to have so many come on board literally to be acknowledged and to take that pledge, that recognition of, hey, they want to call Australia home, and they have done that.
And moving forward to next year, you know, people, put your thinking caps on about the people in around you that you don't take a lot of notice of. They're just there and they do what they do. Have a step back and have a good think about who's doing what around you, because people say, oh, I don't really know anybody. But then when you actually do have a think, you can come up with a dozen or more people that are more than eligible for these awards, and all of these people don't do it for an award. They don't expect any recognition, but as a community we should be providing that recognition for what they do for all of us.
Absolutely. The community's way of just saying thank you.
It is.
Thank you. So yeah, don't be slow in putting forward any issue that might be discussed this morning. Check out the information on the Serpentine Jared Alden website. There's lots of information. It's all there. It's a matter of just taking your time, and of course the Facebook page keeps you up to date in a more immediate sense with what's happening and activities.
And look, I think too, our Shire officers should be acknowledged for the work behind the scenes that goes into presenting our celebration days like Australia Day. We are, I suppose, a very new community in a lot of senses, and we are growing and we are evolving. And that is not an easy thing to manage, to be able to keep most of the community happy with the way we do things and that. And there is reasons things change. We have to. Our community is changing. We need to remember and respect the older part of our community. We need to work in the here and now, and we've also got to be able to look forward to what our community is evolving into. And the Shire officers are doing an absolutely fantastic job in that space, and it's not an easy space for them to work in at times.
There are too many brickbats, I'm afraid. Not enough bouquets.
Oh, look, our Shire staff deserve so many bouquets for what they've achieved recently.
So at the same time, the next time you put pen to paper and you want to communicate with the Shire, don't forget to acknowledge the hard work that perhaps the individual or the members of staff who are helping you out. Good idea, and a great way to just let them feel good and say thank you for the help. An example of that would clearly be, and it's great to see, I can't I suppose in different ways I could use the comment, who let the dogs out, because you've solved that well and truly with that new bark park.
Oh, our bark park is fantastic.
It's alive and well.
It is absolutely fantastic. We had our opening on the 17th of January, the official opening and naming, and our Pause in the Park official event.
Yeah.
Very, very well attended. We had a huge amount of community members and their furry friends down there. I have never seen so many well-behaved dogs in one area, and I must say it is the first time I have ever seen in the flesh an Egyptian hairless dog, and he was absolutely magnificent. I was enthralled.
Yes.
He was beautiful, and he just strutted around doing his stuff. But look, we had a fantastic night down there for the opening. The park itself is well utilised by community members, and on a whole they are extremely respectful of the space. They have a Facebook page going at the moment. It's a Bark Park and the Glades Dog Park, something along those lines. And they get on and make play dates for their furry friends and all. It's fantastic to see. It is great.
And as we know, the ability to suddenly find with a discussion starter, an icebreaker, nothing easier than having your pet along with you. And yes, suddenly the things you find in common with the people that you would otherwise, no offence, walk right by.
Yeah. And look, do you know what? We are extremely proud of the dog park. It was put together with a huge amount of community input. They had input into the name. They actually came along to workshops to help design and show us what they wanted it to be. So in that sense, it hasn't just been the Shire building a dog park for the community. It's been the community working with the Shire to provide a facility that they want. And, you know, as SJ is part of the Peel region, it is the first dedicated official dog park of this nature in the whole Peel region. So we are extremely proud of that fact as well.
So if you haven't had the opportunity of getting down and getting involved, well, you should do, because it's a beautiful location and a safe area for you to let your dog off lead and let them get out and have some fun.
Yep. Larson Road, Byford, get down there and have a look and have a play.
Get down there. A slightly different direction, but certainly a similar level of activity is the skate park. Great to see that facility as far as the younger, the not so younger members of our community, but the Muriel as far as the skate park is concerned.
Yeah, look, our youth development team have worked closely with a number of our youth in the community. Sadly, they lost one of their friends a little while back, who passed away. And the kids have been wanting to put in place something to remember their friend with. Yeah. And through the work they've done with the youth development team and that, they've come up and they're actually going to paint a mural at the Byford Skate Park. And the kids have actually worked really, really hard, because they've gone out and they've actually done applications to gain funding and everything for the supplies and everything to make this happen. So they've been part of this process from the very, very beginning. Yeah. They approached the Shire, they asked, we want to be able to have a remembrance type thing in place. And they have worked from the very start of that process all the way through to the end. So I'm actually extremely proud of our kids that have been part of that process, to get from where they had an initial idea, where they've started working with Shire officers, to the point they've now got to where their mural will be happening for everybody to see.
Absolutely. Yes, a huge impact. And the outcome of as you say, what clearly tragic circumstances and the loss of any individual, but to see the other members of the community coming together in a meaningful way and in its own way, of course, has helped them develop. And the life skills that come from these circumstances are absolutely positive in this case.
Oh, look, I think, very much so.
In the neighbourhood with me at the moment, the Shire President for the Shire of Serpentine and Jarrahdale, Councillor Michelle Rich. First time for 2020, lots happening. I think we touched on this the last time, and so it's been a little while, but the Jarrahdale entry statement, what's happened in that space since we last spoke?
Jarrahdale entry statement. We've had a number of community consultation workshops with the community, which I've attended in Jarrahdale, where the Shire officers have been working through that process with the community. Overwhelming support that's come out of the two workshops I have attended is that the community would like to see the sign that is already there retained and repaired, fixed.
Okay.
So that is the way we're going.
Sounds like the community has spoken.
They have.
And that's what it's all about, the communication. And again, I like the way that particular is a classic example of the opportunity of the community getting involved, happily with it. So there you have it, you've heard it, confirmed, not hearsay, not someone else's opinion of what they think they heard.
There'll be further information coming out in the next few weeks to the residents up in the Jarrahdale area that this includes. So yeah, watch this space. The sign will soon be back.
We haven't been to Jarrahdale for a while. Make it a destination because it is exactly that. There's one more thing about that location I want to talk to you about before you go, but before I get there, as we are prone to do this time of the year, a lot of us get out and enjoy our natural surroundings a lot more perhaps at this time of the year than others. But in doing so, some of us take advantage of the beautiful water holes and the opportunities to really get out there and enjoy some of the waterways that are out and about in the neighbourhood. And the Serpentine Falls, again, another great example of what's around them.
Beautiful spot.
As a destination to get along and enjoy with your family, just get out and suck in the fresh air. But there have been issues from the public health point of view with people actually getting in and getting into the water. Yeah, look, I suppose this is probably one of the areas where the community don't have a full understanding of how the falls is managed. The Serpentine Falls is an absolutely fabulous, magnificent part of our local area. It's probably something that some of us take for granted a little bit. It is our regional tourist attraction for the area, and it's magnificent. The Shire don't manage the falls because it's part of the Serpentine National Park. It's managed by the State Government Department. But what the Shire does do is we do regular water testing to make sure that the water is safe for humans to paddle in and swim in, that kind of thing. And we report those findings to the State Government Department, which is responsible for the falls. So, as part of our water testing regime, that was found that we had bacteria levels there that were harmful to humans. So that was reported, it was put out into the community as an awareness to say, look, water's been tested, this has been found, so the falls are closed for water access at this point in time. Obviously, following on from that, further water testing was done and completed, and we got to the point where the bacteria was no longer there. And it's something that comes in with the hot weather and the low flow of water, which is just, it's one of Mother Nature's things. Exactly right.
And we just have to be aware of it, and we need to take the appropriate steps. So when it was found that the bacteria was present, the State Government Department closed the falls for access because of that. And once we got the all clear through the water testing that the bacteria was no longer a threat there, the falls were reopened.
And that's the reality of it. I mean, sometimes the water levels and what would normally perhaps be moving through it to make it a super enjoyable area. Again, the impact of Mother Nature at this time of the year. But again, it's good to see that something as essential as that is part of the regular housekeeping within the Shire.
Yep, it's just one of those regular things that our Shire officers go on with and work in consultation with the State Government Department responsible for the management of the falls. So
be confident that that and any other local waterways, that unless you're advised otherwise, that they're being maintained and your health and well-being is being, and the integrity associated with it is always under review and in no way compromised. We're getting to that time of the year. We've had the opportunity this time last year, but residents need to, if they haven't already, get out and get some tickets to have the opportunity of frocking up for the best social and the most significant social event of the year in the Southeast Corridor, and that's the forthcoming opera in the Mill.
James, it is our first opera in the Mill last year absolutely blew me away. The night itself was just absolutely magical.
Yeah.
When you had looked at that setting in broad daylight before we had the opera there and looked at it and went, you can't have that here. That's how is that going to work? And then to roll in on the night and see how the old mill was presented, how the area just came alive. It was absolutely beautiful. And then with the opera singers that we had there, and I'm not an opera person. That last year was my first opera experience, and although I will admit I did not understand a lot of it, but it was just beautiful. The setting, everything else, and I tell you, I am so looking forward to this year. It's
a beautiful setting, and again, seeing it and participating at night, because the fabulous lighting and all the effects that are achieved, and congratulations to all associated with it last year, because the challenge is there for this year, and the expectations are always high.
Oh, they are high, yes.
So to that extent, please, just a reminder that, again, congratulations to the Shire of Serpentine, Jarrahdale, and working closely, of course, with WA Opera to make this happen, the West Australian Opera. But I know Naomi Johns will be a soprano. I've got to go through them because I want to acknowledge Sam Robert Smith, baritone, Fiona Campbell, mezzo-soprano, John Longmuir is one of the tenors, Krista Van Tuin will be conducting and making sure that everybody is at their best.
Yes.
And shining light, as they will do on the night.
Very, very excited to attend this year's Opera in the Mill. If you haven't already, please get your tickets. It's a magnificent night.
Not far away, 7th of March, Saturday the 7th of March, gets underway at 6:30 through until about 10:30. Don't hold me to the times. But the reality is you need to go, and perhaps the easiest way to check it all out is have a look at the Opera at the Mill on Facebook.
That's it.
Or have a look at the Shire's website.
Shire's website, and I think there is an Opera in the Mill Facebook page as well. Exactly. Jump on and have a look.
And it all happens in the beautiful setting that is the Jarrahdale Mill. On Millers, most appropriate, Millers Road in Jarrahdale. You don't worry about all of that, just make sure you go online and get your tickets, because it will sell out, and if you don't get them now, you're going to miss out, and you'll be very, very disappointed. Those who went last year are going to be front runners. Probably sitting back saying, what are you talking about? I got my tickets already, Mr. Ray. It's all happening. So that'll be an event to be part of, and congratulations, because it just adds to the beautiful historical timber town that is Jarrahdale.
Oh, look, Jarrahdale is just a very special place. It is a beautiful town, and it has so many little hidden jewels in many places up there.
And this is one of them, because at twilight, in the middle of summer, it's absolutely beautiful, and to be able to have a little bit of sparkling wine, if that's your go, why not? But you're being serenaded by some pretty talented, very talented operatic artists as well.
I think we are very spoilt with the talent that we have.
Fabulous evening. So the 7th of March is when it's happening. Be there, and as I say, check it out on Facebook, Opera at the Mill, and you'll see all of the appropriate directions as to how you're going to get your tickets and be part of it. Hey Michelle, this is fantastic to have you in for, Madam President, have you in for the first event of opportunity of chatting with you. Brickbats, bouquets, they're all part of life, but the work that's being done for those that are concerned about issues within the Shire, pick up the phone and avail yourself of accurate information.
Look, at the end of the day, the Shire is there to help our community. We're there to work with our community, and the best way to do that is to have communication directly with our community, and to be able to have the conversations and provide correct information about what's going on, what's been done, how things work. So, you've got 9 councillors out there. Pick the phone up, have a conversation with any one of them, or more than one if you choose. go in, see our officers. They are more than happy to talk to people. Send an email, info@sjshire.wa.gov.au. You'll get a response.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
there is numerous ways to have that communication. Use it.
To that extent, thank you for coming in as you do and sharing with us. We're hearing firsthand from yourself as a president for Serpentine Jarrahdale, the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. Thank you. Best wishes for 2020. I look forward to catching up with you again soon. And yes, there's always plenty to talk about because life's great in the Shire.
Life is absolutely fantastic in our Shire. We have one of the most special places in the whole world to live. Now, we're very, very lucky with that. So look, I love coming in and being able to share with everybody what's happening in SJ and what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how good everything is.
Absolutely. Michelle Rich, Councillor Michelle Rich, thanks for joining us this morning. Great to have you in, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks very much, James.